Thank you for joining us again in studio as we continue our series of interviews with candidates who will be on the ballot this November in Framingham for the municipal elections. I'm Brendan Fitzpatrick, and I'm joined by the City Council member for District 4, Michael Cannon, who is running for re-election. Thank you, Councilor Cannon, for joining us today. We appreciate it.
It's Michael, and it's great to be with you at Access Framingham, Brendan.
Well, Michael, again, thank you for coming in. We can go into some of your top priorities as you're running for another term in the local legislative body in just a few minutes. But for people who aren't aware, I wanted to start today by learning a little bit about your background and what's led you to this point here at the City Council.
Sure. Well, I was involved in the community long before my name appeared on a ballot. We were a town form of government, and I was involved with that on their finance committee, their capital budget committee, the skate park advisory committee. I've never set foot on a skateboard. We were just struggling to get things done efficiently, and it seemed like all of the major decisions impacting a very diverse town were being made with good intentions by one little corner of the community. So I was involved in our work to update our form of government, and had never run for anything before and was elected to our first city council. And District 4 is a really tricky place because every major issue that impacts Framingham touches District 4. And I think that's even more so now, where we have major redevelopment questions coming up and people that need to be advocating for the protection of our neighborhoods. A lot of interesting stuff going on. Outside of this, I'm a business owner, so I travel a bit for work. If people see me sometimes on a meeting remotely, my work schedule's pretty tough. I'm involved in a number of other community things. Daniel's Table I'm involved with. I'm on the board at the Danforth Museum next door. So Framingham is a great place to keep busy, and we need more people to get involved, and no shortage of things to do.
And you've been involved with the City Council now for a handful of terms. You've spent some time now within the City Council. What would you say is the top lesson that you've learned so far during your tenure?
I got some great advice when I was first elected, and because I had never, my name had never been on a ballot. So many of the challenges that we were talking about were new to me in terms of helping to solve them. And when people ask me, when they get elected the first time for any advice, it's the same advice that I pass along, which is go out of your way to work with everybody, especially that person maybe during a campaign that you butted heads with, or you were on, different sides of a particular issue. If you go out of your way to build some common ground there, you're going to find things where you agree meaningfully, and you can get stuff done. And then you'll be able to talk about the things that maybe you don't have, you're not eye to eye on. But going out of your way to work with everybody, not just those who you think you agree with, I think serves the community really well.
So that's a piece of advice that you've learned in the past, and that transitions to now in 2025, running for another term. Michael, what are some of the top priorities that you would look to enact if you are to win another term?
Well, as we look around the community and as we look around the district, I think we have some really tough decisions that we need to be making as a community. And I think it's good that there are more elections being contested. I think as a community, not just in Framingham, but when there are challengers to an incumbent, that's how the community discusses the issues of the day. That's how we as a community get together and talk about what's going well, what's not, where do we want to be in the next handful of years. So I'm thankful to Access Framingham for having these conversations, and hopefully going forward, every election, every cycle, every office will be contested, so we can do that. As we look ahead in District 4, there's a lot of discussion about the possible redevelopment of Shoppers World, not just for District 4, but that's going to be potentially transformational for the community. I mean, there are decisions that were made in the 1940s about Shoppers World that we still live with today. And that's the impact that we're thinking about, or should be thinking about, as we look forward. And I think it's really important that we've got some proven experience and proven leadership, a proven ability to get things done as we make sure that we advocate for our neighborhoods, making sure that whatever happens at Shoppers World works for Framingham, not just for developers.
And of course, the Shoppers World topic was huge during the MBTA Communities Act discussion. Outside of development, are there any other major priorities that you'd look to be focusing on as we get closer to Election Day?
I think we need, well, beyond Election Day, whatever the City Council and the Mayor's office looks like come January, I think we really need to, with the school committee, look at where do we find some ways of being more efficient. We have separate finance departments. We have separate human resources departments. Maybe that made sense at one particular point in time. Maybe that makes sense today. But we have a lot of redundancy, particularly with buildings and grounds. And I think we need to take a careful look at all of the different ways that we happen to do things and ask, is this the best way to do them going forward? I don't think enough of that happened when we first became a city for a number of reasons. But if we make sure that we're taking ideas from everywhere, the people that are doing the jobs have really good ideas about how to make this community run better and serve the public more effectively. It's a very expensive place to live, and I think there are some things that we can do without impacting public services to make it more affordable. And I think about our seniors when we talk about that quite a bit.
You'll be on the ballot against Steven Belcher, who, by the way, during our conversation also mentioned senior citizens as well. So that's actually a good transition into this question that I had. Have you gotten a chance to connect with Steven Belcher ahead of the election? And from there, have you found any topics that you two agree on, actually, and then any other topics that you might disagree on, you might splinter from?
Sure. He's a Republican challenger. I called him when he was certified to appear on the ballot. That's not a small feat. There's a lot of headaches that come along with that. You're asking people for signatures, you're knocking on doors, and you're putting your family through some headaches as well. So when I met his family, I got to say thank you to them because we need more people to step up and get involved. He's a licensed practical nurse. I've got a lot of nurses in our family, so that's an important thing that we share in common there. And he's a veteran, and I'm hopeful that he'll get more involved in the veterans initiatives that we have here in Framingham. So we need more people to get involved, raise their hand to serve in various ways, and hopefully every office, every election cycle, every season will be contested, so we can talk about these meaningful issues that impact our community.
Now, again, you've spent a fair amount of time within the city council at this point. Now, you've served within 2 mayoral administrations. From your perspective, I'm curious, how do you think things are going well between the city council, the mayor's office, and the other prongs of the municipal government? And do you think that there are any factors that need to change over the next coming years?
I think we all need to do a better job talking to each other outside of the formality of a meeting. We need to be discussing the issues on an ongoing basis. Sometimes we get locked into budget season, and that's really the only time that's focused. I think we're doing a better job at that now, where we're talking about major issues that we want to conquer in the year ahead, and having that ongoing dialogue instead of a seasonal dialogue, I think helps us stay ahead of the curve and make sure that we're not letting we're doing a better job at hopefully preventing things from falling through the cracks.
And that kind of also leads into the topic of transparency, which is something that voters and officials within the city alike seem very focused on.
Yeah.
What's your take on the state of transparency within the municipal government right now?
I think there are a lot of good intentions, but I think our execution needs a lot of work. I know everybody that's involved, and I work with all of these people, and I think for the most part, everyone wants to be as transparent as they claim. But boy, is it difficult to log onto the Framingham government website and find probably what you're looking for. We make you go through this public records request process, again, well-intentioned, but it shouldn't be that difficult to find really common information about what's going on in your government. And I think there needs to be, we're going to be discussing this when this airs, well, it'll be the Tuesday, the 7th council meeting. I think we're making progress because the first administration didn't even want to have this conversation. The Sisiski administration is more committed to transparency, which I appreciate and admire and I'm grateful for. But the things that we publish publicly proactively, not just when someone requests it and goes through this arduous process where you have to ask the right question just the right way, I think we can do a better job at that. And I've been squawking about that for a while, but I see us I see us shrinking the gap between what we say and what we do as a municipality.
Like you just referenced, we're sitting here early October as we conduct this interview. Still a couple of weeks to go ahead before Election Day. But as we approach that time, Michael, what would be one thing you want voters in District 4 to think about when they're getting ready to fill out their ballot?
I think the track record of getting things done. If I'm known for anything for folks that pay attention to this stuff, I certainly don't shy away from asking difficult questions or having uncomfortable conversations. But I try to be very, very responsive to people, whether it's a community issue someone's having, there's an issue with a tree that came up recently, or safety issues with traffic. There are some new speed humps that went in on Edgebrook because that's what the neighborhood wanted, and we together worked through that process with the Traffic Commission and Public Works. There's line striping that's improved at 126 and Route 30 that's improved safety. There's a new crosswalk that went in recently on Beacon Street by Sylvester. And all of that stuff happened because they had access to their counselor. And I like to think that they'd have the same experience in other districts if they reached out to their counselor, and I can point to similar success stories there. But you need someone, at the end of the day, we work for the folks that sent us into the memorial building. It's why when people call me Counselor Cannon, I say, no, it's Mike, it's Michael. That's really important because we work for them and we need to be responsive to them. And I think, in the time that I've been in office since we've been a city, I think I've done a pretty good job. Probably not the best. Janet Lee and Bruno is probably the most responsive, and there are some others as well. But I think I've done a pretty good job of being responsive and meaningfully getting things done. And the getting things done thing isn't because it's one counselor. It's because it's all teamwork, and we all work. We have to work well together to get things done.
And again, folks, that's Michael Cannon. He is running for re-election for the District 4 seat on the Framingham City Council. Election day is Tuesday, November the 4th. Until then, Michael, we appreciate you coming in today. Thank you very much.
It's great to see you, Brendan.
Thank you for joining us in the studio here as we continue our series of interviews with candidates who will be on the ballot in Framingham this November for municipal positions. My name is Brendan Fitzpatrick, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Steven Belcher. He is one of the candidates for the District 4 seat on the City Council. Steven, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming in today.
Brandon, thank you so much. So nice to see you. Thank you for the invitation.
We'll get into your priorities and whatnot in just a few minutes, but to start, I wanted to ask you, for people who may not be aware, I wanted to learn more about your background and what led you to this race. What motivated you to run for the City Council?
Sure. Well, as you know, I'm a nurse in our area. I'm also a veteran, but mostly I'm a father. I got a beautiful little 8-year-old girl, had some difficulties in school. We found out her superpower is dyslexia, which is always fantastic. So we've had to move a lot and move around with that. Life got a little bit crazier. And we're still, having difficulties with the school system now. So that is one of my number one priorities is just transparency in the school.
You mentioned your professional background, you also being a veteran, and within your family as well. All that together, how do you think that could translate to the City Council if you're eventually elected in a few weeks?
Well, obviously, I like trying to work closely with the Veterans Council. I think we have a fantastic Veterans Council here. Board of Health, I think they're doing a decent job, so it would be nice to interact more with that. As a father with a child in the school system, learning how to navigate, I just want to make sure that other children aren't having the same problems, that we're not leaving a child behind.
I understand this is your first foray into local politics, is that right?
This is me dipping my toe in, but instead of dipping in, we're going to jump all the way in. So this is it. It's quite interesting.
Leading up to this point, again, we're about a month away from the election, a month and change, I should say, before the election as we record this right now. But up until this point, Steven, what are some of the lessons that you've learned with your first time dipping your toes into these waters?
It's a lot of work. It's a lot more work than you think. Just trying to get the signatures. I went door to door, getting all that. I had a loophole with my first set of signs, so I had put a Army logo on it, just being an Army veteran. And I found out that you're not allowed to do that because you're not being endorsed by anybody. So I had to change up the sign. So it's been a learn as you go process. It really has. But I've been meeting great people, fantastic people in the community like yourself. And like I said, I really enjoyed going door to door and meeting the people.
Now, that's a good transition into some of the top priorities of your campaign. You mentioned a couple of them very briefly early on into this conversation, but I wanted to get into the specifics. What are some of your major priorities that you'd be looking to stump for if you are eventually elected in District 4?
I'm worried about elderly housing, making sure that we have affordable housing for our elderly, and that whether that's changing the way we look at our utilities, the way we change rent, because again, their Social Security checks aren't getting higher every year, but their rent is, the utilities are. So we really need to look at capping that. We have, I think, 63 at-risk veterans right now, making sure that we're going into the wintertime, that they have fuel oil, they have a place to stay, they have foods and meals and stuff like that coming to them. And obviously we know the MBTA thing is definitely a hot topic right now. So we need some more green spaces out there for our children, because as these apartments come in, we're going to add more children in here, and we need cooling zones. We need refreshing stations. And we might need some places that have fuel assistance. So we need to make sure that the parents out there for our children are having all their needs met as well as the children.
I believe earlier on you mentioned that the school system as well, that's something that you have a major focus on.
I do. I worry about the transparency with the teachers. Not every teacher is licensed in our school system, and I think a lot of people are not aware of that. And that was one of the issues that we had running through this. So I just want to make sure that we've got full transparency, that everyone's licensed, everyone is doing their job, and a job that they're skilled and qualified to do.
You mentioned that in terms of in the context of the school system, but transparency as a whole, just across the municipal government, having done this for a couple of years now myself, covering local news, that seems to be a topic that comes up all the time, whether it's from elected officials themselves, residents, their constituents, whoever it might be. Bird's eye view over the entire city of Framingham, Steven. What's your opinion on the state of municipal government transparency? And if you are elected, are there any changes that you would like to make on that front?
There are, and I appreciate what they did this year with the budget. Bringing in an outside source, being able to speak about that. I think maybe doing that a little bit more, right? So having more of these budgetary meetings open to the public, so that way they know exactly where their tax dollars are going.
You're on the ballot against Mike Cannon in District 4, the incumbent city councilor. Over the last couple of months, as you've embarked on this campaign, have you been able to communicate with Mike Cannon? Have you been able to identify any topics that you actually are in lockstep with him on, you agree with? And then conversely, are there any major topics that you would say that you differ from him on?
I like Mike, great guy. I called him the day I pulled my papers because I didn't want any hard feelings there. When I made my signatures, he called me to congratulate me. I see him at a lot of the different events that we go to, whether it's outside music or the farmers market and things like that. Always very, very pleasant. I think we definitely agree on the topic for the elderly. He's a big elderly supporter and making sure that we do have affordable elderly housing. One of the different where we do differ, I believe, is the school committee and making sure that all those issues I said in the school are being addressed.
Any other additional things within the school committee or the schools as a whole that you might differ on, not just what you had mentioned with transparency?
Yeah, I think we need to have more access for the teenagers in Framingham. We have nothing like Natick has different things like Putt Shack, and they've got Dave & Buster's and stuff, and we really don't have much for our teenagers, right? So what are they doing? They're going out and they're getting in trouble. We need to start opening those schools up, having more after-school programs instead of just sports, offering a place on a Saturday night instead of just the YMCA that they can go until 11, 12 o'clock at night. We just need to make sure that they're safe while doing it.
You mentioned that Councilor Cannon called to congratulate you, after your papers were pulled, once you were officially on the ballot. Take it back a couple of months before that, though. Can you remember the moment when you decided that you were going to put your hat in the race for this?
It was trying to get my daughter an IEP, and obviously because of HIPAA, I can't go too much into it. But the more digging I did, the more problems I was finding. Between that, we continue to use NRT for busing. We had the second day of school, the bus was broken down. So we got to make sure that these contracts that we're paying heavy dollars to are being upheld.
Right, and then it's also, the city moving into the in-house school transportation program. That's been a major topic over the last year and change or so.
Yeah.
That school transportation issue.
We've been talking about that school transportation issue since 2020 during the pandemic, restarting, missing 17 bus drivers, right? Like we weren't going out there, we weren't making sure that we had the right people and the right equipment.
Right.
So.
Obviously, a huge part of the city council, any councilor, one of their major roles is interacting with the other arms of the municipal government, whether it's the school committee or the Department of Public Works, and obviously, of course, the mayor's office. In your view, what are I guess a better way to phrase that is, how do you think the state of that communication between the city council and other parts of the municipal government has gone? Are there any changes you would look to make on that front?
I think we need more consistency through like web pages and web design. Our communications director really to make sure that we're hearing, right? The school board is doing this. The Veterans Council is doing this. How can we inter-support them, right? One of the great things I think they do is the little mini spooktacular at Halloween and opening up all the offices and really getting everybody involved. That's one of my favorite programs that they do. So I'll be down there this year with my daughter. I can't wait. So there are good things, and there's just a little bit more, right? We can't just all communicate through Facebook. Some of us are just different generations. I'm not the greatest with computers, right? When I was graduating in high school, there was only 20 computers in our school, our whole school. So that's one of the things that I always try to take courses. I try to better myself on learning. I'm not great with social media. My wife does help me with a lot of those aspects, like, your grammar's wrong on this one and everything like that. And you've got AI coming out, which absolutely terrifies me. But we'll see where we are with that in the next 5 years.
Even with all of that in mind, though, maybe a little technical difficulties, for lack of a better term, are there any initiatives or anything, any efforts you would look to enact if you are elected as the District 4 City Councilor that you would like to institute to keep in touch with your constituents?
Yes, definitely, definitely. I think we need to go back to phone tree, good old-fashioned phone calls. I don't think that you can communicate everything through email. And then sometimes when everybody's done it before, right? You email somebody and you're like, oh, are they yelling at me? Like, what is going on here? I don't think between that and Facebook, right, we just need a larger web support system that will actually ask, just, hey, pick up a phone and call me. Let's meet. Let's all meet here together as one branch.
Obviously, again, we're a couple of weeks away from Election Day in early November. But as people are preparing to think about who they want to vote for, and when they do eventually step up to the polls or get ready to fill out their ballot, what would be one thing you would want District 4 residents to think about while they're filling out their ballot?
What are we going to do as we grow older as a community, right? So I want you to know when you go and you fill out that ballot, you think, you know what are we going to do for our elders? I mean, I work 40 hours in our local nursing homes, but I see some people coming in for rehab, and in the next 2 years, they're going to have to be looking for affordable housing. They just can't stay at home anymore. It's not feasible. So I just want you to know, where are we going to put your mother, your father, your spouse, yourself in a few years, and what does that affordability look like?
Again, that's Steven Belcher. He is one of the candidates for the District 4 seat on the City Council. Again, Election Day is Tuesday, November 4th here in Framingham. Until then, Steven, thanks for coming in and joining us
today. Hey, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.